I'm gonna tell you, Vic, true story. You know, here at the Big Yellow House in our gardens, we have a lot of stones and crystals and 100-year-old bricks, all sorts of cool stuff. And there was just kind of a piece of like granite, black, kind of sparkly looking stone that had been in the yard. And it wasn't a stone that Joe or I brought here in the collection. And so it was back in 2013 that as I build new gardens, you know, I can't wait till something's all finished. I have to make it pretty when it's still in the middle stages, so I bring things to decorate my little projects, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I grabbed this stone and I moved it over to the new garden that I had made on the side of the house. Okay. A few weeks later, and I know this sounds just like the last story, but this is how it happened, is a few weeks later, and this was during the blood moon in August. So we're August 2013. I'm walking by, minding my own business, and I see that stone sparkling. Not the little sparkles that were on the bottom that were just black and gray. I mean like a crystal or a point sticking out of a stone that had never stuck out before, and I'm fairly observant. So I looked at it and walked over to it, and I was like, "Hey, Joe." And, you know, I went through the same thing again about I know people think I'm nuts and so on and so forth, but do you notice anything different right here in the garden? And he picked it up right away and brought it inside, and we've been looking at it ever since. So the story goes on, okay? And it has been growing and refining itself and transforming as well. Now, when I hold the next thing up in front of the TV that I'm going to hold up, these are all possibilities. I'm hoping somebody on the card is going to jump in and have something to say here. So we're going to put that out into the airwaves. But when I tell you that this stone right here that we're ready to see a video clip of in a few minutes used to be a flat rectangle, you know what you'd be thinking, right? She lost her mind, man. So this happened over the last few years, and before I got online with you guys, believe it or not, being the excessive girl I am, you know, I've meditated with this thousands of hours, looked at it under a magnifying glass thousands of times, and I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up, so if it doesn't, be honest with me, it's not going to break my heart. Okay. Now, this picture was taken quite some time ago because it's been framed for several years, and that is the only way that I know how to try to do this for you. Okay. How am I doing?
Looks great.
Alright. I want everybody to focus out on the little corner end there. And the last thing I see is something that's clear like a crystal formation. Is that what you see?
Yes, it appears that way.
Cool. Now I can actually show you growth then.
Mm.
The hook out on that now.
Mm. Yeah, much bigger.
Okay, now you see the clear.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on a second. It's hard to do backwards. I watched this formation grow
Mm-hmm.
in front of my own eyes. It started out as small, it looked like little piranha teeth, sharp triangular formations. And they actually grow together, and there's the matrix growing right there. You know what else is wild? Okay, so somebody says, for real, Suze. If this is growing and transforming and it was flat before, where's all the dust? I mean, you would think something would fall off it and it'd be sitting around.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like a fragile stone. This is nothing of the sort. And so, I'm going to tell you a little more about some of the stories we've heard about this stone.
Does that stone, what did you say it was, the name of the stone? You don't know? Quartz or?
Hey, I haven't said nothing yet. There is over 24 elements
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
contained on this.
Right.
No one, even in the rock, mineral, and gem shows, I'm not talking about the psychic fair where we pick up
Mm-hmm.
a piece of quartz. I'm talking about the serious guys.
Right.
And one of the biggest things about this is that, and I heard this on one of the YouTubes I'm going to talk about here in a minute.
Okay.
All right. The significance of a stone that contains this many elements but is not completely magnetized is a BFD.
Mm-hmm.
Usually a stone is magnetized everywhere, and I'm going to show you one of the places and formations it's magnetized. Do you see that little guy right there?
Mm-hmm.
If I stuck a magnet to it,
Mm-hmm.
that would stick. On the back side, now the back side used to be very, very flat, and it's incredible what has grown here and cleaned. But from the go, it had those yellow golden formations that almost look like amber.
Mm-hmm.
And what's amazing is if we turn it this way, you may just see a face in the center of that stone.
Hmm.
Some people see planetary alignments. Other people see those birds that the natives and the mound builders painted on the mountains over in Illinois on the river road. I can't think of the name of the bird right now.
Well, it's interesting because it reminds me of back in the day when I was in my former path. I keep mentioning my former path,
Yes.
but one of the things they would teach is that soul could incarnate as a way of evolving. It would incarnate initially in mineral, and then it would go up through plant and then animal, and then on off to humans, if you will.
You see we have magnetization there, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've never looked at that from that perspective. It sort of resonates that it could be something about life force being in that stone.
Oh, big time. And now I have to go ahead and say it. So, my dear friend that I brought up to you that had cleared negative energy out of the halls of Congress, remember that story?
Mm-hmm.
She said that this meteorite was crammed together by celestial forces, and it's some kind of transmitter. So, let's just go right into the front of that, and I'm telling you what, the opening up that is going on there is equal to the opening up in the Scarab, and they sit together and hang out together. So usually the way that they live all the time, because they want to be together, is like that. I've also been told.
Have you checked that stone? Had it checked with a Geiger counter or anything to see if there's radiation?
Okay, now.
Or am I jumping ahead? Sorry.
That is a brilliant question, Vic. And actually, most people cannot handle the energy of this stone. I'm its keeper until it gets returned to its rightful place.
Wow, cool.
There are toxic elements on this. So, this would not be a stone here again that you would make elixir water with. Right, and if you did, you'd contain it in the mason jar, remember?
Yes.
Right. This, well, you know, we're just going to let everybody research it. And here again, it's like Raiders of the Lost Ark. If some schmuck thinks they're going to come be able to grab this thing, it's going to disintegrate them.
Interesting.
I'm just putting the warning out there. And then the experts know, and they'll back me up. They know how important this is, and the time's come that I had to speak. But I want to show you so many things. This is the back side of the stone under a black light. Now you'll really be able to see that amber. Do you see the face, Vic?
I see, yeah. I see some things that look like faces, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of faces. There's probably, there's at least 100 faces all over this, but you know, the eyebrows, the nose, you can see the eyes. Let me turn it upside down to show you that bird that I cannot think of. It's the Anasazi bird. Anasazi, right?
No, I'm not familiar with Anasazi, aside from the Russian royalty, I think it was.
All right.
That was Anastasia, sorry.
The people that lived in the mountains, in the sharp cliff mountains in Arizona. They had their houses in them.
Yes, yeah, I'm familiar with that. Cool.
I think that might be what it is. I wanna roll this little itty bitty teeny tiny short video of the stone. Be the first on your block to be the first on your block to know. Okay, so my little sweet Natalie Marie Hart, right? Crystal Kids TV. Now, she had Gloria Amendola on February the 6th, 2016. So that was the very same day as our last show, Vic.
It's interesting.
I'm going to have to say confirmation of spirit phenomenon progress. You can't make this stuff up. Okay, now, of course, we all know that Randy Moggins birthed me into this media family I'm in now, and he's off Planet Radio. So he had Gloria Amendola on back in July, and of course that was the first time I heard her speak. And her topic of expertise, amongst many others, is Mary Magdalene, first century avatar. Then, oh yeah, this is that thing I shouldn't say out loud. You think people can read that? It says something about Ben Stone. And then they'd have to go, oh shit, man. And then they go look it up. So that's Danny Wilton, and that's 2 years ago.
Fantastic. It's great stuff.
Pretty current action, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, you know, I've got my YouTube channel, Sue's Pratt. And we have a couple good ones there that you might want to see. Phenomenon progress on 9. Whoa, slow down. Wrong piece of green paper, guys. I was jumping the gun just a second. All right, so this is the other video that's going to help out with the stone story, right? We're still on that subject?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The Grail Cipher. It's a 4-episode feature. It's brand spanking new, and when I say that, I mean in the last 3 months. Ralph Ellis is the, I'm going to call him an expert on the Arthurian history. Do you know Ralph Ellis, Vic? You ever heard of him?
Free not.
He's pretty cool. He's pretty cool. I like him. Michael Tessarian was in that show, and you know I love Michael Tessarian.
Yep, he's a good guy.
Yeah, he is. And David Whitehead is a wonderful guy I'm friends with on Facebook now. And for a lot of the people that might not know him, he's Modern Knowledge Tour, and you can find him on Truth Warrior. So it was him that hosted. It was David that hosted that show. And then there's a great other YouTube that's just a little older than that Ralph Ellis put out on, hey, I'm backwards to this. Doesn't it say, what does that say, Vic? Can you read it?
Looks like it says Ralph Ellis interview, the history of King Arthur and King Jesus, David Whitehead, Truth Warrior.
Bless your heart. Appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely a vortex here.
Yeah, my old guru, he would open up vortices, as needed, and some of them were very, very, very powerful. In fact, I think the one he reopened was in Flagstaff, I think. Oh, Sedona. Mm-hmm. Sedona, Arizona. And apparently that area has some very powerful vortices in there as well. So, no, it's a fascinating topic. My old path, they used to call it the rod of power. That when a person ascended to a certain level of mastery, they earn the right to become the living master, if you will, and that becomes the master of our time. And so that master understood the God worlds, understood the human world, and all it was trying to do was, for the most part, help souls that were ready to become self-realized, and then once they became self-realized, they were released so that they could then explore the worlds beyond the soul plane, if you will. And it was something that I lived by for decades. And of course, today we are all, because of all the changes that have been going on in the consciousness, and I would say mostly through the ability to communicate instantly anywhere in the world. we are now creating synergies that I think allow us to transcend, the stuff that we were learning even only 10 years ago. So that's wonderful, and I think what you're expressing here with respect to this manifestation is precisely that we're starting to move into. I think it was James that said magic will be coming back through something called quantum physics, and that's very true.
Yes, it is. And interestingly enough, Cahokia Mounds is right across the river.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe too that we are on the land where those pyramids once were everywhere, the Cahokia Mounds. Absolutely. All right.
Before we go there, though, I think especially the old ancient Indian techniques or mystics understood these ley lines and magnetic, lines that we interface with. And here in Florida, where I live, someone told me that there's an ancient burial mound, and this person is saying that's why this area has never really got directed from a hurricane. And and I think there's probably something to that, because there are certain energies, especially where we are. There's like a microclimate here, and it's just very interesting. Although there are other places with even more stronger energy flows, but it's interesting to understand some of that from a fundamental perspective.
Well, I think that's why we're going to offer, I guess, what you call a podcast on dowsing, and we'll do it all together as an experimental group of people that we'll see where this takes us. So I'm very excited about that. There is a video I want to bring to everybody's attention. There's one called Crop Formation Decoding, Scarab Beetle, and Twin Soul Remerges with Osiris, Thy Always Seek. And I tried to get involved in this gal's group, and I don't know if she's around anymore, but she has some really good videos. And then we have an ancient art podcast by Louis Livingston, which would also illustrate a lot of what the antiquities have to show and say about scarabs.
Right. Great stuff. Thank you. I've never been exposed to any of that, so it's all new to me.
Well, we're going to move on to the next one, and this story is bigger and better, and it just keeps going and building. Move the scarab over a little bit. I want to bring up some information that everybody can research. Now, these are videos that are on YouTube that really confirm spirit for me. So, of course, we have the interview with Swami Kaleshwar, I believe, Kaleshwar. Yeah. And that was New Realities with Alan Feinstein, and it was released on February 5th, 2016. Now, what's a trip about that is that's the day before the last show. These are all things that I look at as tags and confirmation of spirit and such.
It's a nice technique.
Well, you know what, Vic? It's just like in life charting. If you can document even a daily journey, sure as anything, you're not crazy. and you also are associating with people in a philosophical or scientific manner that are at the top of their fields, I dig it, so I do enjoy doing this. Now we've got Paula Gloria again, like we mentioned, and she's also the director of the Concordia Foundation, besides being the producer at The Whole Truth. It's a little hard to read backwards, but I do okay. So, what blows my mind, okay, I gotta sit down, this just drives me nuts. That was a two-part interview, Vic, and the first part where she actually reveals, okay, so the hands and the flowers, and what she comes up with is an amulet that's that nice Indian elephant god representation with the arms like this.
Right.
Okay. And so when it manifested at first, the one wing or the one hand, whatever we want to call it, wasn't completely formed. And after she had held it in her own hands and meditated with it that next day, it had been completely formed. The reason I bring that up is because you would think that there would be all sorts of people that had seen that before they saw the second one, which has had like 3,400 views or something. She doesn't repeat that story in the second one. Now, a lot of people ask, me different questions about this, but they asked me, what about the wings? And so in this next piece of paper I'm going to bring up, they actually talked about the process and the way the scarab's wings are built. So in my mind, I've always believed that when the time is right, these wings are going to open up like what you'd see represented on a lot of the Egyptian hieroglyphs. And there will be information or transformation or renewal or something at that time. And over these years it has been with us, to see little cracks opening up, like at the bottom of its butt, or to see the legs become even more defined, is what's really mind-blowing about this.
Mm-hmm.
Even the little feelers in the front, sometimes it looks like little white eggs pop out of the mouth, and it's tremendous. But historically, scarabs are.
So let me ask you. Let me see if I understood. You're saying that this object is actually transforming itself still. It's manifesting new parts of itself.
It's like it's.
That's pretty good. Mm-hmm.
And it's a refinement of sorts.
That's fascinating.
It really is. And of course, they would be like the theoretical, original, androgynous form, because they carry both reproductive, that regeneration power. So they create themselves. They don't need a lover.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're saying when you opened up this, what sounded like you opened up a vortex, and this vortex obviously is still active relative to the object.
It's wherever I go. And see, this was the old hair shop 12 minutes down the road in Florissant. I painted a room that to me represented Dr. Bach's home in England. All the flowers and the stars and the trees, and Right, I just did this big art project. But that's just like here on the third cosmic ray where we are. There's definitely a vortex here. This scarab right here, when I went to douse it with the pendulum, the pendulum had the proper movement, which would be clockwise and spinning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and what I asked was, did this scarab emanate its own energy field? And so the answer was yes. Now, of course, the nut or the stone ancient African scarab does not have that field. It didn't manifest itself. The deal with this scarab, Vic, have you heard this story at all?
I remember you mentioned it in our first meeting, but I don't remember the whole story, to be honest with you.
Okay, so I was hanging out with a metaphysician, and his name was Dr. Dunn. I believe he was a watcher, and he gave me some psychotropic incense, I would say, a blend. You know, he was an apothecary, alchemist, and so he made a little mixture, and he gave me one of those charcoal briquets, and he told me I had to, where I meditated, there couldn't be any other people in that building because the energies that would travel with me and be open would encounter the energies that were traveling with the other people. So I was in this room where I had opened up a vortex. I had painted it when I was reading Steiner and realizing how I felt about Joe and that I would need to change my life to go on this journey. I was in very deep soul searching, still back in my old life. And so, of course, for the first 38 years of my life being fear-based, for good reason, not out of paranoia, because it all proves to be true, of course, and here we find out now the story's bigger than we ever could have dreamt. But back then to go and be in a dark room alone, meditating with some wild incense, knowing full well energies would be coming in that room. Right. So when I got done with the meditation, I couldn't believe it, man, because the charcoal briquet had burnt the incense burner, but of course, at that time, there was no scarab there. It was flat. The entire surface touched down.
Right.
And so when we moved to Ferguson in August of 2007, of course, I brought my personal items with me, and I wanted to cleanse the building that we lived in and burn incense in my apartment. And we were there a few months, and one day I, was walking to my daughter's room, and I looked at the incense burner, and I saw the scarab on it. I was like, and so I called Joe and Chelsea, and I said, hey, man, I know everybody thinks, maybe I was smoking or, I'm wild or, whatever. Do y'all see what I see? Right.
Sure.
And they said, of course we do. I said, good, because I know that, but my whole life people told me I was wrong, Vic, or that not to have faith or not to believe or not to cross the line. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Right, and I'm not that kind of chick, So, it was tricky, you can imagine, telling every client that sat in my chair that story. You want to talk about shattering reality. And, or maybe better, maybe I should have hid it from all of them. You see, but I'm not like that, and why should I have to hide who I am and what my experience is?
Exactly.
Right. So,
I can relate to that.
You know, and to be this open to the potential that will manifest as a result of us living this way, I'm willing to take that chance. And, you know, if people want to tease me, I mean, that's cool. They won't be hanging out no more. It just, if they don't know me by now and trust me by now, I have to move on, right?
Well, you and I seem to be kindred spirits then, because that's exactly how I see it.
And that's why we've been hanging out, isn't it?
It looks that way, yeah. I would have to say, a lot of nice rapport here.
And my clients, you know, they remember, because they're the ones that told me I was nuts for ever being friends with anybody I didn't know.
Mm.
And so now as, you know, they're in the hot seat and I've got them watching the show, I say, hey, this is one of the guys.
Got to go with that inner intuition.
Yes. All right. So you want to ask me anything about the Scarab pick?
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing, and I do want to tell you, my fingerprint is on it, and it is every bit as hard as what the rest of the composite material is. It formed itself up out of nothing, which is traditionally what scarabs kind of did with their young, because they put the eggs theoretically in the ball of dung, and the bugs came out of the depths of the dung.
I've done that. No, but seriously, it's interesting, because I would be very interested to learn what exactly you were thinking about when this manifestation occurred. What were you thinking of?
Okay, so here's what it was. I had left my old life and had to tell the man that I was married to that I loved Joe unconditionally, my best friend Joe. And of course, you know, that is a very unusual story as well. And that, I think, is why so few people are able to make the journey, because for anybody that believes in a soulmate or a twin flame soulmate or a karmic soulmate, if you're already stuck over here, how do you cross over to that other side? And honesty was the only way I could do it. So if I put myself back at that time, of course, you know, I really wanted to believe that I was going to come here and start a new life, because, of course, in physicality, I really was doing that.
Well, it sounds to me like your higher self was telling you that you were making the right decision, and it was confirming to you that miracles can happen. Don't get caught up in the drama, in the illusion of it all, and that it's okay to let go. You know, as long as you do it with love, it's not much else you can do.
And no matter what happens, there is rejuvenation.
Yeah, well, you seem to have a pretty evolved, soul, let's put it that way. I don't like to use the word evolve because it implies time and all this other stuff. But that's to me a sign of an evolved soul, an evolved being. And your higher self is powerful enough to communicate something in the material world to you through this manifestation. Sort of like this Swami did with this lady. He was basically saying, look, there's more to life than what you see around you, and here's a sample of it, here's a symbol of it. And I sort of get the impression that's probably what you were experiencing.
Yes, and the other day, one of my bestest friends that I've never met, that lives in South Africa. He's a friend of Monica's. Do you know Neil?
Neil? Yes, I I've communicated with him on occasion. Chat.
Well, Neil's like a quantum brother, as you know, the way Monica puts it. I love Neil. And
He's a
so,
good guy. I like him too.
yeah, he's cool. So he got a hold of me on the messenger the other day and was asking me what was up with it, the Scarab. And, you know, he's pretty active on the Ancient Times 2 Civilization page. And so, of course, me being fun, I said, you know what it is, you know the meaning. I mean, you got ancient Egypt stuff everywhere, you know? And,
Let me just say one thing though.
okay.
Never trust anyone from South Africa. Just kidding.
Hey, you know,
That was intended for Biggie.
oh, okay.
Just kidding.
See, I always
I
tell,
have some good friends in Africa too.
I always think that Mel and Biggie are in the Netherlands. Are you telling me they're in South Africa with Neil?